things like that.
Yeah, we'll
You good?
we'll probably start. Why not, Jake? How do you want to do it? I guess.
Well, let's do the intro, and then we'll throw it to Reese to start.
Oh, did I jump the gun?
Yeah, it's all right.
Jake's not very good at being like, hey,
I can't wait. I just, I love talking about myself.
Yeah,
so,
Uh-huh.
A podcast about bourbon and the ones who drink it. This is Bourbon Matters. Welcome to Bourbon Matters. I'm Jake.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Jake also.
And we have a special guest with us tonight, Reese from Fox and Oden. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So obviously tonight we're drinking different Fox and Oden expressions. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Fox and Oden and how you got involved with them and Coppercraft?
Okay. I'll make the beginning of it as concise as possible, right? I come from an on-premise background, spent a couple decades in the bar and restaurant industry, tending bar, running cocktail programs, beverage directing, that type of thing. Got a little long in the tooth, and I decided I need to, hook up with a distributor, probably start selling booze to the bars instead of from the bars. You know what I mean? Getting a little old to keep tending bar till 3 a.m. So I started doing that, working for Heritage Wine Cellars here in the Chicago area. We picked up a brand called Coppercraft, right? And along with it, Joseph Magnus and a bunch of other brands, but specifically talking about whiskey for our purposes. Really just thought it was an outstanding product. I thought just very well made and very well put together, from the packaging to the liquid in the bottle. Joseph Magnus, obviously, just some really outstanding whiskeys. And after a period of a few years working on the distribution side, I had an opportunity to go and work for a supplier, a supplier of Blue Ridge Spirits, which represents the Craft Co lineup and many other brands as well.
What are some of the other
but I really
brands that you represent with Fox and Oden?
Well, there's Coppercraft. There's Joseph Magnus. Craft Co also has a liqueur cordial line called Thatcher's, which are all organic cordial liqueurs, different flavors: blood orange, elderflower. Everybody does an elderflower. Prickly pear, cucumber. There's a number of other ones on the way, hopefully as well. But just really outstanding products. I thought they're good products. I thought the gentleman who is now my direct boss, a gentleman by the name of Brian Kirk, I really enjoyed working with him when he was a supplier and I was a distributor. We got along very well, and
good guy.
He gave me an opportunity.
He Bulls game with him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, did you?
Yep.
Yeah, we went to the Cubs game last night. So
did you?
It was cold, man. It was cold.
Yeah,
they won.
Not a time to go to baseball games, but I guess there's not really a wrong time.
It was I mean, the Cubs won 6-0, right? So hooray for the Cubs. But I went to San Diego. They were playing the Padres. San Diego's got some of the best players in the world, and they did nothing. They did nothing. Very quiet bats all night long. They did nothing.
They have the pitch clock now too, so the games go by a little quicker.
Oh
yeah. I'm still undecided on how I feel about the whole thing.
The problem is all the liquor sales they're missing out on. I saw right off the bat, a week or two into the season, Miller Park's we're losing too much money. We're extending the last call.
Yeah,
to the 8th inning or something.
Yeah.
Thank God for Wisconsin.
Some of the rules are tricky. Like the pitcher can only throw to first base twice. I feel like, if he throws over there twice, he's got to go home at that point, right? So take a big lead.
I guess, baseball purists that I know are kind of upset about the rule, but I'm not really a huge baseball fan. I'm just a sports in general fan. And to me, having the game go by quicker just makes it much more interesting to watch and go to a game.
Sure. Sure. I get that. I understand that. I just think from a baseball purist standpoint, they really take a lot of the pace of play out of the
Yeah,
hands of the pitcher. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like
If
I
I
see
was a
that's really
purist, I would be pissed.
that's really putting a little bit of in my opinion, the advantage in the hitter's hands at
It
that
is,
point because
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get back to whiskey.
Back to
Um, yeah, so I had this opportunity with Blue Ridge. And I took it. I said, I want to learn the supplier side of the business anyway, and I really like this part of our portfolio. And there's other parts of our Blue Ridge portfolio that I've come to really enjoy as well. But my first and foremost, the reason I wanted to come and join Blue Ridge was because I wanted to have a more kind of a closer relationship with Craftco and the whiskeys that they were putting out. So that's why I'm here.
Nice. Awesome.
We want to talk about Fox Noten a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Can you tell us how Fox Noted, Magnus, and Coppercraft are kind of interrelated? Because I don't think a lot of people
Okay.
know that those are basically the same.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Well,
owned
the
by
same team, right?
Company. Yeah.
Yeah, the same team, not entirely the same source. Obviously, with Fox and Oden using some different sourcing for a couple of the SKUs, but the same team is responsible for the liquid in the bottle. This is not a lot of people think because of Nancy Fraley's connection with Joseph Magnus and the finishing and the blending and stuff that she's responsible there with that. But this is not her as far as Fox and Oden. She is not the one who is doing the blending for this brand. This is a gentleman by the name of Will Fabry that does, he's taken, kind of what he's learned and taken off and run with it with this brand. And I feel like he's done a really great job and that we have a real winner with this brand,
Yeah.
So Reese,
I think, go ahead.
so I was just gonna say I gotta plug Gold Eagle real quick because we have some Gold Eagle listeners here. So Reese he did present at the Fox Noted Masterclass a couple weeks ago. So if it kind of sounds familiar, this is the same guy who is at the event. But I remember at the event you talked about Will a lot and you kind of edified him a lot. Like where did he come from? I know you mentioned like Nancy kind of took him under his wing and he kind of branched off and leading the Fox and Oden charge. You kind of said it was like his baby, his brand. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, this is, I mean, he is the master distiller and blender for Coppercraft, right? Because Coppercraft is a blend of two distilleries. We are distillers, right? So we are blending our own whiskey with sourced whiskey from MGP or Ross and Squibb now. But yes, Fox and Oden is his thing. He is the one picking these barrels. He is doing the blending, and his background is a culinary background. Actually, I think that's kind of why
Yeah,
I think Nancy Fraley kind of took an interest in kind of mentoring him a little bit. I think because of his palate, his and his experience with different flavors and stuff. So I think he's doing a great job, and I hope to get him in our market a little bit, because it's like basically right around the corner, right? Like it's like a 3-hour drive, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to get him over in the Chicagoland market a little bit, say, hey, there's some really great accounts over here that would really like to meet not just me who is on the street selling it, but the guy who's actually, touching it every day, So
yeah, well,
we're working on that. We're working on
you do a
that.
great job for him, but it would be very cool to have the actual blender.
Yeah, of
in
course.
the house for an event.
Of course.
But, so he was with Coppercraft before.
He is there. Yep. Yep.
So
I spoke with him last year, and he told me that most of his time is spent trying to find barrels. I think we should all just really just invest our money in white oak farms. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
mm-hmm. So he was distilling at Coppercraft before the whole merger. Like
Yes.
How exactly did that merger happen?
It happened during COVID.
Magnus was in DC, right? And then Coppercraft's up
correct.
in Michigan.
Coppercraft had the Craft Co. I should say the parent company bought Joseph Magnus, and during COVID, they moved that operation from DC to to Michigan, to Holland. So everything now is all under one roof as far as, the bottling line and all that stuff, and the Rick House there in Holland, Michigan. So yeah, it's a really cool little thing that's happening. It's a growing company. Again, distilling and sourcing, right? In Michigan, there's a lot of things that Coppercraft makes. They do a rum, they do gin, they do vodka, for their tasting room and all that stuff, but really the focus and the passion of the brand is our whiskeys. So, yeah.
So,
And
in terms of
so far, so good. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
oh,
so
go
far
ahead.
so great.
Go ahead and finish.
No, I don't even remember what I was going to say. Actually.
So my question was, Coppercraft is distilling, and I think you touched on this at the event last week, but it seems like Coppercraft will be eventually using their own distillate at some point, correct?
I don't have a good answer for you on that. I really, one would think that eventually it's going to be all Coppercraft's, distillate. But I have not heard anything either way.
Okay.
I
So
don't work
Magnus,
directly for I don't work
yeah.
directly for the distillery. You know what I mean? I work for a supplier that represents this distillery, and they don't give me all the information I would love to have all the time.
Yeah.
But they let things slip every once in a while.
So Fox, Oden, and Magnus aren't really distilling then. It's really Coppercraft behind.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Fox and
Yeah.
Oden is a sourced brand. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's sourced MGP as far as the bourbons go, and the rye and the single malt are sourced out of Middle West.
And
Which, by the
most
way,
of the bourbons are older sourced whiskey, right? Those usually have a pretty decent age statement on them.
They're all a blend of 8 to 15-year-old bourbons, high rye, mostly the MGP 36% rye mash bill,
And
which I think is a good idea. I think that was a wise decision to do that. I think, eventually most brands put out a high rye bourbon at some point, and I think we're just kind of I think the brand's starting where it should,
Mm-hmm.
I personally enjoy a high rye bourbon. I like the little added complexity that it brings. So
Reese, maybe you know this answer, maybe you don't, but I know it is a blend of 8 to 15, but I feel like it's not advertised or talked about enough from the brand. Like, why don't they have an 8-year age statement on the bottle? Especially now, we have so many new craft brands, young whiskeys popping up, and I mean, these have some serious age and flavor, and not many people realize, I think, that these are 8 to 15-year-old blends.
yeah, yeah. I think that, I think people, I am one. I like an age statement. You know what I mean? Perhaps at some point in the future, they'll look into that. I don't have a good answer for you there. I think it would behoove the brand to let people know that there is some really, well-aged whiskey in these bottles, especially for the Coppercraft brands, because,
Yeah.
like for instance, the rye from Coppercraft, our sourced barrels are almost 8 years old now. It'd be nice for people to know that when they're looking at that bottle. But
Right. And
I'll
the
write an
price
email
point.
to the bosses and see if they
You
can't
should.
make something happen for us.
I mean, the
Well,
price
I
point's
just think
great
you get.
for.
I think you get a lot of people that are just looking at up and down the liquor store aisles just for age statements sometimes, not realizing that sometimes it makes a big difference, sometimes it doesn't. But when you get those people that are just looking for 8 to 10 or older,
Yes,
that's
there is a consumer out there that specifically targets age statements for sure.
Yeah, which I don't like that consumer, just for the record. But
unless they
mostly,
buy. If they buy something, then you love that consumer.
Mostly just because, especially in the last couple of years, I've really been my eyes have been open to a lot of young whiskeys that I think taste better than a lot of older whiskeys, and I think it depends much more on taste than just the age statement. I don't care how old it is. Like, is it good or is it not good?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think you're dead on. I think
but it does help.
I mean, we can talk about aging whiskey, like corn is a bully, right? Corn kind of dominates up until about 4 years, and after 4 years, some of the characteristics of those secondary grains kind of come through in the distillate a little bit. But I think corn kind of just dominates everything until it's about 4 years old, So a young rye tends to show better, right, than a young bourbon.
Mhm.
But there's certainly a lot of 6-year-old bourbons out there that, in my opinion, show a lot better than some 17 and 18-year-old bourbons that I could name that I won't,
Yeah.
So what do you think the future of, I mean, it sounds like Coppercraft's going to be doing some distilling. How does Fox and Oden keep growing and evolving as a brand?
That's a good question. A lot of that information I am not privy to, It's just a fact,
Yep.
I am the salesman, you know what I mean? I'm not in those meetings about future growth and releases or finishes and stuff like that.
So I can
I
kind
wish
of
I had more. I wish I had more of that information to share with you guys.
I can kind of add on to that
I don't.
question with something that I was going to kind of ask, because you mentioned at the masterclass that you think MGP is kind of drying up with their stock, which I think we can all agree on is pretty evident. And Fox and Oden's big thing was they're looking for other places where they can source really, really good whiskey from. So I think Fox and Oden evolving as a brand will probably get better by their partnerships that they already have. Their stock of whiskey is getting older and better, and also finding new places that have available whiskey to source out.
Yeah, I think that there's. I think that the Middle West Distillery out of Columbus, Ohio, has really gotten some good publicity. I think they're doing a good job, and I think and I haven't been there. I would really like to go and actually visit that distillery and see that operation, because if they're making their own product, right, they're putting their own label out there. But if they're also selling and contracting with other labels, they must be putting out a good amount of liquid, right? I mean, they must be making a lot of whiskey.
Yeah.
So again, this is information that I don't know anything. They have not communicated this to me yet, but I think hopefully they feel like they've gotten out in front of this and found a source that they're going to be able to work with that they know is putting out quality whiskey. Because I'm drinking the rye right now, right? That they're sourcing from Middle West, and I happen to think it's fantastic, So happy about their choice to source from Middle West.
I am too. I just want to piggyback on that and say I had one of my distributor reps say they want to bring a supplier by some distillery in Ohio. I was dreading it. He just said he really needed a favor, and he thinks that I actually would be really interested in what they have. So I kind of just met with them just as a favor to him, and I was seriously impressed by everything that I tried. And everything was pretty young, like 4 to 6 year, their own distilled, but it does not taste like craft whiskey. It tastes like a big brand made this product. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have like a serious distilling operation going down there in Ohio.
One of these days, hopefully before too long, I want to go and see it.
Let's do it.
I want to go and see it.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
let's
Ohio.
do it. Let's make a road trip.
Let's do it, right?
Yeah, it's not that far, right?
Yeah.
It's
There's
Ohio.
any
They
reason
gotta
to
have
go to
Fox
something.
Noden
Ohio.
can sponsor it.
Maybe, yeah, it's a good idea. I can.
Nancy, if you're listening to this podcast, set us up with a trip.
Well, we're gonna get Jake to pick a barrel of Coppercraft, and maybe I can talk to the brand about putting together a trip, for some barrel buyers to go and check out some of their partners, where they're sourcing from. Who knows?
Very good. But
You got to ask. The worst I can hear is no, right? You got to at least ask, right?
I would love to pick a barrel. Yeah. Bring me.
Well, I'm going to see you this Thursday, I believe.
All right. But I think that's a.
And we were at the master class.
The rye whiskey, which I know most of us are drinking tonight. It's a 95.5, but it's 95 pumpernickel rye. Am I not mistaken?
Right. It's a pumpernickel rye. So how I understand this is that it's basically the rye seed with the skin not removed, right? Um,
Okay.
which like my instinct tells me, oh, it's probably got this much bolder kind of thing going on with the spice and everything. But in my opinion, it actually kind of mellows out the spice and kind of like when I drink this next to say Coppercraft's rye whiskey, the rye whiskey from Coppercraft gives me more of those like bright, spicy, almost like that like subtle spearmint you get with the rye.
Yeah.
Whereas the Fox and Oden rye, I kind of get like a mellower, like deeper. I taste like burnt sugar, like it's a little bit different, and I really enjoy it. It's almost like sipping on like it reminds me more of sipping on a high rye bourbon than a rye whiskey.
Yeah, the
Just
spice
kind of,
is
and it
pretty
tastes really
mellow.
refined to me. Like doesn't have any sharp corners to it. It tastes really mellow and a
Right.
really easy pour.
Yeah,
It's got like
it's
some
definitely.
earthiness and like grassiness to it too.
Yeah, it has a lot of similar notes to the MGP 95.5 rye, which is like one of my favorite things to drink. Um, but this one is like there's a little bit more of the like bourbony kind of notes, kind of like you mentioned,
It's
where
it's
you
a little
get some
more
of that
inviting.
like yeah, yeah. There's a little bit more of that like vanilla and like the caramel and like that kind of stuff going
Yeah.
on in it. So yeah, it's a pretty remarkable rye, especially for being under 100 proof. Which I do want to ask about because you talked about the proofing process that they use. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
So yeah, it's all brandy blending, like Nancy Fraley learning those techniques over in France with the cognac producers. So, everything that's put out, all the whiskey that's put out by Craft Co is all brandy blending techniques as far as, slowly adding water over the course of the last few months, proofing down in the barrel. It takes care, it takes time, but in my opinion, you end up with a better product.
Yeah, I think it's really evident in like if you take this and put it up against a comparable proof whiskey, the amount of flavor in this
Hmm.
is like leaps and bounds over most whiskeys in the 90 to 100 proof range. So I think that technique definitely yields some good dividends. It is pretty
Well,
apparent.
those cognac producers over there have been making brandy for a long time,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
chances are they probably know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So
So, Jake,
I'm glad you.
what are you guys getting all for nose palate out of the rye?
So the nose has definitely got some of that like mint and like floral notes that are like typical of that 95.5 mash bill.
Definitely a lot of floral notes on the nose.
Yeah, and like I said,
Little.
it's pretty remarkable how much is on the nose for this proof point. Like typically, I would expect a nose like this to be like well over 100 proof. Um, so it's nice, especially right now during allergy season when I can actually smell it.
And I mean, to me, the palate is just like a more balanced, like lighter version of MGP's 95.5. And you get a lot more fruity notes instead of like that deep, intense like spice that hits you. So I think this would be an incredible rye for somebody who thinks they don't like rye or is just
Like
trying to
Dan.
get into rye. Especially at the price point too. It's a $50 bottle. It's a beautiful looking bottle. So and it's not like 80 proof. So rye connoisseurs, whiskey connoisseurs can kind of get into this too and still find some good flavor in it as well.
Yeah.
Now we also noticed quite a bit of difference in the batch, right? I mean,
We did,
the
yeah.
the bottle that I brought with me for the event was batch 8, and you had bottles of batch 2 and 3, and there was a pretty big difference in those. And I really enjoyed 8. I thought 8 was a little bit more of those caramel vanilla notes to it. But I think universally, everybody in the audience kind of preferred batch 2.
Which was good because that's the bottles that we had to sell. But
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Good for you.
I'm drinking,
but I mean, there were
3 right now.
we had all 2 and 3.
Yeah, I remember all 3 of them were very distinctly, but I mean there's subtle differences, but you can really tell the difference.
They were different, though.
between
You
them,
could tell.
Yeah.
They were different. but you
I
can
like
tell
that.
the-
You know,
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
keeps
like
it
that. I mean, there's
interesting.
something to be said for consistency, right? Make sure you buy the, you want to buy this bottle 6 months from now. You want the same thing. But I actually like when little surprises like that, little differences from batch to batch.
Yeah, I wouldn't call any of them like so different that you think it was a completely different, product. But there's like
Sure.
little hints of like some flavors that are there in one batch that might not be present in another or replaced by something else, which is definitely cool. Especially if that's the type of product that you're trying to put out.
I guess that's the hard thing about blending too, is because you don't have really much control over the aging process of it or anything. You're just trying to pick the best barrels that match your flavor profile and create something fairly consistent, but it's going to have variations. But to keep putting out batches that are good and sell is there's a trick to it.
It's a challenge, right? It's
Yeah.
not so easy. Yeah. Well, so far so good. We're really happy with what Will's doing. So, and the brand has been received really well, not only here in the Illinois market, but really all over the country, wherever it's been released. People seem to like it.
Are you in every state right now, or are you still just in limited markets?
No, we're not in every state, but we have pretty wide distribution. I mean,
Okay.
we are from California to Texas to Florida to the Midwest, Colorado. We have the New York, the Northeast area. So we have pretty wide distribution. Not all 50 states, but pretty wide.
Nice. Well, I'm working on, I got the straight bourbon, which was double gold last year. Is that correct?
The straight bourbon.
On the straight bourbon? It's, I've never had, I think the only time I ever had Fox and Oden was at the Magnus Masterclass last year. Jake, I think you busted out.
Oh, I remember. That was last. That was last.
Reese did that.
Was that last July?
That had been last summer, fall, somewhere in there.
Yeah, that was. Oh, yeah. That was like the first release of Fox and Oden.
Yeah,
that was my first ever time trying it. This is my second. It's been fun because I have both the straight bourbon and I have the double oaked, which I'll let someone else talk about the double oaked. But it's nice to be able to have them side by side and compare. But it's got kind of like that baking spice and a little bit of caramel on it. It's hard to pick up barrel notes when you're sniffing that and then trying to do the double oak right beside of it, which you get so much barrel notes on the nose of the double oak that it's hard to tell what comes through.
What's like the biggest differences for you with the straight bourbon versus the double oak, since you're tasting them side by side?
I like them both. I think the double oak almost adds too much oakiness and takes away from some of the spirit. And I think it's got some really good.
That's a distiller talking.
So sorry, I'm getting. It's funny because I'm going. The more I've been working there, the more and more I'm appreciating the actual spirit flavor and hating some of the oaky notes out of it anymore. Not hating, but preferring more of just that. It's almost got. It's
the
weird.
distillate.
Yeah, it's on the palate. It almost. There's a small part of it that almost reminds me a little bit of a single malt, which is weird because there's not much malt in it.
See, I kind of thought that on the
it's funny.
bourbon.
That's what I'm drinking as a straight.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's for if people are watching, here's straight, and then you can see the double oaks. You can see a pretty big color difference,
like
hopefully.
Twice as dark.
Yeah.
A little bit of the
6 to 9.
A little bit of marshmallow on the finish. So a little some of that barrel lactone. But
Look
overall,
at him
it's
showing off.
sorry.
I told you.
Sorry,
that's
some
a
of us are trying to
distiller.
learn. Some of us are trying to learn. For what? Same thing. 99 proof on this. It has really good flavor on it. We've talked about it ad nauseum on the podcast. We're all pretty much barrel proof guys, or like the 110, 120 proofs. This has a lot of good flavor. The finish sits there a little bit. It's not overpowering, but it's nice. It just kind of lingers for a little bit and then slowly fades away. A little bit. Yeah, I'm not getting too much of the fruit notes on this, but it's just more kind of the kind of has some of the characteristics like a dry red wine, some of the leather on it. It's not. I mean, I like it through and through. It's pretty good.
So to me, these all have like the flavor that a barrel proof has without the burn.
Yeah.
So I think these are really good whiskeys for people that are like us and like the barrel proof stuff. But you know, you always need to have something in that 100 proof range, just for when you're feeling something lighter. And I think that all goes back to the cognac style blending. Because I get the same thing on Dancing Goat whiskey, and they do the same thing, that slowly adding the water over a couple of months to get.
You're flavoring the water, right?
Yeah,
you're flavoring the water in the
right.
barrel. You know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you always in the whiskeys I've tried that do that method. You always get a more balanced but full flavor whiskey versus like their cash strength. So I'm interested in tasting Fox Note and cash strength at some point just to see if I can. If
You and
that's
me
the
both.
reason. But yeah, mm-hmm. As soon as you get it, you know where to go.
You and me both.
Just text Will.
So
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead and
I'm sorry,
talk
go ahead,
about the double oak since you're drinking it too. Like what's the like how would you compare it to the regular bourbon?
You're just
Talking
letting
to
me
me or
drink all
Reese?
night. I like that.
Oh, Dan.
Either one.
Oh,
Go
well,
ahead, Jake.
yeah, either one.
Go ahead, Dan.
No, you go ahead, Jake.
I mean, I think I kind of already said, like, I just think it's really creamy. It's really balanced, but you get a ton of that rich vanilla flavor, a ton of that caramel, but it's not as sweet as some other whiskeys. It's just kind of, it's like just mellow. And typically with like 100 proof whiskeys, the flavor hits you and then it just goes away. But this one, the finish actually sits there for a little bit as well. And then you get kind of a little bit of spice that kicks in after like 20 or 30 seconds, after all the sweet notes kind of go away.
Yeah,
I get.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I get like caramel covered cherry. You know, when I drink this, like if we could take a cherry and cover it in caramel.
Yeah,
that's kind of what that's really kind of what
there.
my flavor, what my taste buds tell me when I drink this. And I do think it has a nice, soft kind of just overall feel to it. You know, when I first tried it, I mentioned this at the class last week. When I first tried it, I remember telling my boss right away, like, this is going to be the driver. You know, the flavor profile and the mouthfeel and everything is going to, you know, be a satisfying pour for the bourbon drinker out there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, can we get more, you know? can we get more cases in the market, please, you know? So, yeah, this is the one that I think is going to be the one that's going to be in demand most right off the bat, you know? And I've also, not to jump off the bottle that we're talking about, but recently I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback on the single malt, which is really nice to hear, you know? Really nice to hear.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the single malt. It's very good.
Are you using similar sources for the single malt, or are you sourcing that somewhere completely different?
The single malt is also coming from Middle West, yeah.
Okay.
So Reese, that's kind of a good segue. What's like what do you see with American single malts? Any opinions on that category as a whole? Because I do think the Fox and Oden single malt is really
I think
good.
it's, yeah.
And a lot of
I think
big
it's pretty much
distilleries are coming out with one.
Well, so when I was working at the distributor, we represented a couple of smaller distilleries that were making American single malts, right? And one of them in particular, I'm not going to mention names, but there was one that I was a huge fan of. I thought it was excellent, you know? Um, and I think largely a lot of people in the whiskey, American whiskey world have said, you know, eventually this is going to be a real category. You know what I mean? Like this is going to happen, you know, I don't know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but it's going to happen, right? Well, that was 5 years ago and it still hasn't really happened, right?
It's
You
kind of
know?
like the rum
So,
thing. When
right,
is
right.
rum gonna take
But
off? We've been waiting 30
when I,
years.
exactly, well, if you lived in Florida, man, rum's been the spirit of choice down there forever. So anyway, when I saw, you know, larger producers starting to make, you know, the Woodford came out, Jack Daniels, and when you see brands like this releasing single malts, you know, I have to think that this is eventually going to be an important category in the whiskey world. And I think it was a very wise decision for Craftco to get to 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 try to tackle this right off the bat. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like what we're doing. I think it suits the American palate. You know, it's a sweet, creamy, you know, like almost like a sweet oatmeal cereal. It was what I, you know, kind of that's what it reminds me of when I drink it. I think it suits the American palate, you know, and again, I think the brand really hit a home run, and I think we have a winner in that category with this bottle. It's just a matter of time, I suppose, is when maybe when today's 28-year-old bourbon drinker becomes the 38-year-old Scotch drinker, you know, or something, you know. I don't, you know, people tend to graduate to a less sweet spirit, you know, even though I'm backwards because I drank more Scotch when I was 30 and I'm 52 now and I drink more bourbon. So it's kind of reversed course. But yeah, I'm really happy with our single malt. I think it will I think it will gain some fans and some consistent followers.
I
Yeah,
mean, I
I
just want
would.
American single malt to do well, just so we can stop talking about Scotch and Irish people. Like, this is America. Let's do our own thing.
Damn, Dan. No, I think it's a category that you know, right now it doesn't really have a lot of respect with a lot of, especially today's bourbon drinker. But I think you're right. I think 10 years from now, when people start to realize they want something a little less sweet, little change of pace, they're going to kind of gravitate towards another American spirit and the American single malt. And I hope they do, because there's a lot of really good products out there. And I definitely would say the Fox and Oden is up there in my top favorites.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconception about American single malts that I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people believe that it's peated or something. You know, and that's kind of off-putting to a lot of people, especially bourbon
Yeah,
drinkers who are looking for that sweet
yeah,
spirit. So yeah, you know, once I think people realize that, you know, it's actually pretty comparable in like sweetness and uh yeah, like drinkability to a lot of bourbons, I think people will start to realize that it's actually, you know, much more in our wheelhouse as, you know, bourbon lovers
yeah, for
than a
sure.
lot of people think, you know.
Listen, when I drank Scotch, when I was more of a Scotch drinker, I was an Isla drinker. You know what I mean? Like I wanted Ardbeg, you know,
Hmm.
but you can't really session that. You know what I mean? That's like
Yeah.
you can't have three pours. It's just not really, you know, it's like a one and done type of deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But our single malt, you can session our single malt. You know, you can have a couple of those. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that I hear from customers is anytime I try to talk to them about single malt, 99% of people are like, oh, I don't like Scotch. I don't like peat. I'm like, well, there's no peat in American single malt.
Yeah.
So just try it. And then once they try
Hmm.
it, yeah, they realize it's completely different than Scotch. So
Sounds like you
yeah,
need some
like I
single
said, I've
malt.
been getting.
Sounds like you need some
Go ahead.
single
I'm
malt
sorry.
master classes coming up, Jake.
we do, man, and we have a couple really good ones. There are also like Scotch single malts, not American single malts, but
Yep.
most of them are unpeated. So if you do like single malt and you do want to branch out, we have May 9th and June 14th. We have Filey Bay and Torbag, which is a new Isle of Skye distillery. We have distillers coming from those distilleries, so definitely check out our upcoming events with those. Those will be great events.
You're welcome for the softball lob.
Thank you.
Jake.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I think I just knocked it out of the park. I even got the dates right off the top of my head.
Nice. So yeah, any closing thoughts that you want to get out there, Reese?
Closing thoughts. I think that everybody on this call and everybody you know should go buy 4 bottles of Fox and Oden from Jake
Way
over
ahead
at
of
Gold
you.
Eagle. No, I honestly, my thoughts are, I just want to really thank Jake. So Jake has been a great partner of ours ever since I started with Blue Ridge Spirits, you know. He's supported our portfolio not only with Craftco, but with our Scotch portion of the portfolio as well. And I really want to thank Jake for that, man. He's been a great partner in the market. I mean, it's really hard sometimes, guys, when there's so much competition out there, right? You walk the aisles nowadays, right?
Mhm.
And it's endless, right? How many brands there are about basically in every category, even like, I mean, the gin market right now, walk the gin aisle and there's 75 different gins out there, right? I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so there's so much competition. It's fast and furious, and it really takes good partnerships in the retail world and in the on-premise world to get your brands to get a little bit of a foothold in the market, and just a little bit of exposure goes a long way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been a big help how Jake has gotten behind our brands. So really just a big thank you to Gold Eagle, man. It's been fantastic. So we're
Hey
gonna
man,
keep it going.
I don't want to turn this into a whole sentimental thing here, but uh, when we taste, so we're very picky with products that we bring in and what we decide to partner with and push. And I mean, this whole product line is legit, and that was very apparent very quickly upon tasting the Coppercraft, Magnus, and Fox Noden line. And then to have someone like Reese and like Brian backing the brand, there for us when we want to do events, when we want to do tastings. It's almost like a perfect partnership, perfect marriage. So we couldn't be happier to create this good relationship with this whole product line, and really looking forward to where we're going to take it with future events and as new SKUs come out, and as the products kind of evolve. So
And I want to say thank you to Jake R. I don't know your last name, Jake R.
Don't try and
But thanks
pronounce
for
it.
attending. Thanks for attending the event, man. It was great. And Dan, congratulations on Whiskey Acres out there in DeKalb, man. I know those people very well. And like I said earlier, man, I think you really have hooked up with a good crew of people out there, man. And you know what they're doing out there with their farm, the seed to bottle type of deal. There's not a whole lot of distilleries out there that do that, man. So really a unique situation you're in out there, and I wish you
Yeah.
luck with that.
Yeah, I think there's some big things that are going to be coming down the road out of there. So
Yeah.
good to get hooked up with them.
So yeah, I real quick, I just want to mention that I really, number one, I really enjoyed the class last week. It was awesome. It was great to get to try all these different expressions from Fox and Oden and Coppercraft. And like, frankly, like, there, like you said, there is so much competition, and getting to do these master classes really lets me try a whole bunch of different things and really pick which ones are like, above and beyond and worth the purchase, so that's
Sure.
it's a great service that Gold Eagle's providing to people, being able to try these things and a fairly accessible environment, so that it's great, because otherwise, like, there's some stuff that, like, I probably never would have even considered, if I didn't get to sit there and taste them all.
Jake, we're going to need to get you a
No,
wide
it's great.
angle lens for your head to fit in the podcast.
Why? Because of my
Dan, I could see you just burning up during all those plugs. His head was about to explode. Gold Eagle's getting plugged too much tonight.
No. What I would like to
Just
say
kidding.
is, since we're talking about Gold Eagle, Jake, would you like to deliver a Gold Eagle plug?
I think we already kind of have, but I mean, if you don't
I set you
follow us-
up perfectly with
You
the
did.
deliver a Gold Eagle plug.
If you haven't followed us already, Instagram Gold Eagle Wine, Facebook Gold Eagle Spirits. You know, you all probably know us by now, but we're big in customer service. We're big in barrel picks and just kind of providing a more educational experience than most stores would do, who are just kind of out there to sell. But that's our number one thing, is educating the consumer, connecting with the consumer. So that's my Gold Eagle plug. Thank you, Dan.
Hey, I'd like to say something about.
Nothing about delivering that special.
Keep talking about Gold Eagle, Reese.
All I wanted to say about Gold Eagle was when we did the class, I remember Jake saying something about, oh yeah, and Reese is going to be here 2 Thursdays from now. We're going to taste through some Coppercraft barrels and pick a barrel. But I'm showing up with about 200 milliliters of 4 different barrels. So if like more than 2 people show up, we're screwed. All right, man. So no, not all 40 people are not invited, man.
Well, you didn't say a time. You just kind of said whenever, if they happen to be
Oh
there.
yeah. Oh, that's good. Good point.
I don't think most of them will remember, and this episode's going to air after tomorrow, so it doesn't matter.
Jake, did you get my plug there? Because it seems like Gold Eagle, Jake, didn't get my plug that I was trying to push.
No,
anyone
you
else
want to
picking up?
say it again, Dan.
I said, do you want to deliver your plug? I got
did
an email
deliver it.
today about Gold Eagle delivering things.
Oh, we do deliver.
Yeah.
Did you get an email? Some of those are automated, and I didn't
know.
that
I know
one
you
yet.
guys were talking about getting to it. I didn't know you guys were already doing it now.
Oh, we've been delivering for about 6 months now.
Yeah, not.
Oh,
national.
shipping.
Yeah, no, shipping very
Yes.
soon. Shipping very soon.
See, Dan doesn't
honestly,
even read the emails. Just don't ignore him.
Deliver and shipping are the same thing.
No, it's not. Delivering is through DoorDash, and it's within 15 miles. Shipping will allow us to ship to certain states, but I will say the holdup is the headache with getting approved for all these different things and making sure we're doing everything legally, and the different states all have different laws. So it's kind of a headache looking in all that. But as soon as we can figure that out, we will start to ship to certain markets, and then expand from there.
Nice. Do you have anything else that you want to plug, Reese?
No, buy Coppercraft and Fox and Oden and Joseph Magnus. And buy them from Jake at Gold Eagle.
Yeah, we should have a Coppercraft episode soon too, because those were excellent as well.
Yeah, that's a brand that
that's the most underrated American whiskey on our shelf, hands down.
I agree.
Jake, do you want to do our plugs then? Because I don't want to do any other talking now.
Yeah, since you didn't do anything, I guess I'll wrap it up with the rest of the work. So you can listen to us on Spotify. You can also watch us on Spotify, as well as listen on any other podcast platform. You can watch us on YouTube, and you can follow us at Bourbon Matters on Instagram, and find us on Facebook at Bourbon Matters. Our website, bourbonmatterspodcast.com, and email us at bourbonmatters@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, Reese, thanks so much for taking some time out to join us tonight.
Reese.
Yep. Thank you.
No problem, guys. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a great time.
Of course.
And plus, I got to have a drink or two.
Yeah,
cheers.
One's gone, the other one's almost there. So.
All right.
Okay.
Cheers, everyone.
Well, thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you, Reese.